In today's video, I will showcase a build with the Chinese. The goal is to get your second C down at around 5-minute marks. Initially you want to straight away first set to build Imperial Tax Collector, then build a windmill next to your berries. If there is a hunt available on certain maps like Altai, you can do it at your hunt instead. And then if it's not a hunt, you need to immediately bring your ship there, as that is a faster collection rate in comparison to the berries. Now in the current patch, the Chinese is probably one of the weakest civs. The late game got nerfed, and that's the main thing they had going for themselves. Their eco boom is still existent, but I think in 1v1 it's not too viable. If you play in some sort of team games, I think it still works just fine. If you have someone else that is playing aggressive or just has units to defend if need be, then I think it works just fine most of the time. But if you do enjoy playing Chinese, this is a good build order. It gives you a very good economy, and as you know, playing against English or French, it's a pretty safe build order in that regard as well. So after you make the windmill and move all of your workers on ship there, you send your invigilator task collector to inspect the building. With your first worker out from UTC, you make a house and a mill right after, and start rallying all your workers onto that until you get 4 workers onto wood. Then you send your next worker onto stone. You need to periodically collect gold from the inspected building. So the windmill, I think you get 3 runs from the windmill to it with 20 gold before you can collect from other buildings. You want to keep only 6 workers for quite a while on food. That will more or less allow you to reach 400 food with 200 gold. You still reach food a bit earlier, and this is not the fastest H2 timing, but it will allow you to get enough resources to go for the second DC very fast into the game. Now I'm playing versus Delhi, so not too worried about early pushes, but even versus Delhi and other things, it is preferable to scout around your opponent's base to see what they're doing. This build is also a little bit greedy in the regard that I skip a second scout just so I can get more economy out, which is also quite dangerous in that regard. After you get 3 trips with your tax collector between the windmill and UTC of 20 gold, your wood will have enough to have 20 gold in it that the Imperial Tax Collector can collect. Then you move between the windmill and the mining camp to get 200 gold. After you get 4 on wood, 3 on stone, you start rallying people on food again. And you use 3, you can use 4 if you want a bit of a faster age up, but that will slow down your TC timing. So I would recommend 3 workers on your age up. You take those from food, and then keep 5 on food. Here keep 6. You can keep 6 as well because you move the tax collector out to your wood. You can alternate this build order. You can go for 3 on wood at the start and then get stone earlier, but I think 4 on wood first is more beneficial, since in case the enemy is going for some sort of push, you'll have more wood out to drop down respective structures that you need. So after I got 5 on food, I keep running out workers onto stone, since I already have a large amount of workers on wood, and there's a tax collector inspecting it. You basically should be able to use the workers that you went for age up with to make your second TC. they'll have a little bit of downtown, but they'll be able to get their TC down shortly. And as you can see, we go to RTC at we had enough research to make the TC at around 5:03, which is a very fast timing. It can be a bit faster. It is technically possible to get it under 5 minutes, but that really depends on the spawn locations you get of your wood line and your stone, and where and if you place your second age up very close to you. Since you are already going for a very eco heavy opener, I would recommend even more to go for the defensive landmark, since since it will help you in case the enemy does go for something aggressive. This build is especially nice on maps that are choke points, so that you can place your Barbican of the Sun, and without siege, it's going to be hard for the opponent to push through. Now, after you get your second TC down, you want to go away from stone. I pulled out from stone a bit too late. I got an extra 95 stone. You could keep gathering stone if you need to wall off certain locations. So again, depends on the map. On this map, I feel like there's way too many points to wall off with stone, so I pulled out of stone. You also want to get a few workers down on your gold. I reacted a bit late and got my workers onto gold a bit late, so I added a few more workers than need be. If you do it as soon as you get enough workers, as soon as you get enough resources to get HC down, then you can only put 4 workers, and that would be enough for gold. But I was able to compensate and get to 400, 200 for the second dynasty. Now you want your second dynasty because that is in essence like adding another TC. In the Song dynasty, you have 35% worker reduction time, which equates to essentially having 3 TCs production from your 2 TCs. So you definitely want to get that as fast as possible. From then on, you want to have a large amount of units on food to be able to keep up with the production that is required, as you are in essence supporting 3 TCs with how fast you're creating your workers. As you can see, Delhi did go for harassment with horsemen, but it's not much of a threat since it's not a very all-in civ early on. It doesn't really do that much damage, and that you can just get out a barracks and start producing spearmen out of it. It is nice to wall off yourself from angles that you can be attacked for. Again, I feel like there's too much for it to be stone wall, so I just decided to go with normal wooden wall. From here you distribute your workers differently depending on the situation, so I don't really care about aging up right now. You might, if you're not being pressured, you might want to keep 3 to 4 workers on gold so that you get your H3 going when you can. But for now, I just want to pump out units and maybe get more defensive structures. So I have mostly wood and food going. Now that I feel a bit more safe, since there's only a few horsemen, I add some workers onto gold. I'm not sure what is the set number of workers you need on food, but you definitely want above 15 workers on food to be able to still pump out all of the villagers that you need and still get an increase in your food production. Hitting age second dynasty allows you to also create better housing, which makes it so you don't need to waste as much wood. So that's another reason to hit that age of also the dynasty a bit faster. Now on some maps you can go for a 30C with this, but I think that is a bit more of a team game strategy than a 1v1 strategy. I think it doesn't work too well in 1v1. And this is more or less the end of the more specific part of the build order, as from here on a lot of the things you do depends on your particular matchup in your particular game. For example, since I'm playing versus Delhi and they already captured the site, I cannot afford to play too eco based, and I'm gonna need to start making an army somewhat soon. While if you're playing against well, I mean, against most civs, you're gonna need to be somewhat aggressive. But if you're playing against English and you're able to hold off their advances, you just keep making defenses and you can keep increasing your economy instead. Maybe even go for a 30C, as English gets a second CC himself at H3. But since I am against Delhi, my plan for this particular game is to go for H3 and then from H3 to start producing gold intensive units like knights and man-at-arms and potentially crossbowmen, but mostly knights and man-at-arms. Man-at-arms is the best unit for that is against non-H3 opponents, as there's nothing, no civ has anything that counters man-at-arms before H3, since there's no high piercing unit even for specialized civs. Yeah, you can get a much faster H3, and another thing with Chinese that it's quite easy to get too much of something, get too much eco going, since you produce so many workers, so you constantly got to be changing your allies and refocusing your resources on what it is that you need at the moment. So currently, for example, I probably have too much gold income still, with 18 on gold, and not enough on food, as most of the things I'll be making will require food, so I needed to rebalance my eco a bit. It's good to keep an eye on that when you play Chinese and constantly move around to your villagers. While they do lose a bit of time walking to their new assigned task, it is more beneficial than having too much of a resource you don't need. So my opponent has gotten H3 as well, so at this point adding crossbowmen is not a bad idea, since he will have armored units himself. Since I have a lot of eco, I'm just gonna sprinkle essentially every single unit type, as I'm not too sure what my opponent is going to be building. He had archers, he had pikemen, so he has all three production structures for units. Since again I'm playing against Delhi, who has control of the site, I decided to go for siege engineering, so I am able to build drums out on the field. Again, with the Chinese having access to clock tower, you can pump out siege units as soon as you hit H3. It's always recommended to just get out nests of bees and get multiple nests of bees out, even if your opponent has spring, also get springs out. You can use your knights and man-at-arms to ignore the enemy units and go for their springles, while multiple nests of bees are much harder to snipe, as showcased here, or like one nest of bees just gets killed by a few horsemen. So if you have 3 to 4 nests of bees, it's easier for you to defend them, and they can defend each other essentially, as long as they're spread out a little bit. So I have a heavy advantage over my opponent of having a way better eco, as I doubt that he even has a second TC, and with second dynasty I have, I mentioned before, essentially triple TC worker production. I am cutting a few workers here and there because I don't have the best distribution right now. Should have had a bit more food income, and it's more important to get units out so that I can contest the site, as there's a limited amount of time for me to do so, and my eco is going to be ahead of my opponent pretty much no matter what. Still though, while I do have a time pressure on me to break through Delhi defenses, it is important not to overreact. 4 minutes is a lot of time, so slowly rallying units in when I have a stronger army should not be a problem for me. And yeah, this game is already hugely in my favor, as I'm able to stop the Delhi's kind of all in into maintaining the site, since they were not in time to build their stone walls as I started the fight a bit before that, and they have a larger amount of units out that are stronger in comparison. When you're playing against Delhi, it's important not to trickle in too many units and they build up a bit of a standing army before going in. But yeah, once you can overpower them, you can just push them back, and you don't have to be too aggressive once you got on the side, as Delhi usually uses a lot of effort to obtain the side in the first place. So if you're able to neutralize it, most likely you're ahead, unless you have to sacrifice a lot of eco or something else to achieve to be able to take the side. Thing to always remember with holy sites is that as soon as your opponent, or well, you, whoever's controlling the site, has no longer 100% control of the site, as indicated by the bar, then the timer freezes and doesn't continue until the opponent goes up to 100%. So at this point, the game is close to being over. I really doubt my opponent is going to be able to win from here. Another mistake that I made in this game that I would recommend not to do is to add in more tax collectors before this point, as they're very crucial to your economy. And that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.